he was still at my place or our place for a minute, but it was somewhere like late September, early October. Him and his girlfriend Amy got a place right next door to Joe, um,
That's awesome.
and kind of set
They
up
were
our
neighbors.
This is a perfect neighborhood.
set up our second spot. Yeah, yeah. I mean, the whole place was starting to block. Oh,
Dang it, Maxwell. It's cutting out just a little bit again. We're gonna try fixing it. Okay.
am I there?
I think we're good.
Don't want this getting out.
Right.
Holy sweet baby Jesus.
Yes.
Maybe the haters are dossing us.
Oh,
I'm not familiar with that expression, but I
I'm
agree.
sorry, guys. Okay. It's gonna work. It's gonna work. Thank you, chat, for coming back. We appreciate you so much. Roz and Dog staying we're the Adam Dunn show with our technical difficulties.
Damn.
Okay. All right. Maxwell, you just keep it rolling.
All right. Can you hear me?
I think we can hear you. I'm going to just send all the energy, all the internet power in the world, all the gigabytes.
I did.
We are good.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I think where we cut off was Bondo was getting his place, so kind of opening up the second house that was going to be running our number 2 and the PK. Actually, Joe probably at that point also had some number 2 that he would have finished by then, because when he moved up, we gave him cuts.
Oh, wow.
I actually helped him build that room.
You were
Yeah, those guys
He
actually
built his room. Well,
build my.
seriously? Was that the
Yeah.
first round of plans that you're talking about? Really? From the apartment? With
So,
these
so I was growing a seed that I got from Klopp, right? That was my little diesel. And then I got the diesel too from these guys that they gave me as a housewarming gift when I moved in to the house in May of '95.
Okay.
Hell of a housewarming.
Thank you for clarifying that.
But since I was transporting plants from my man apartment to the house in the Catskills that were in flower, I just basically taped garbage bags over the top of them and moved them in the U-Haul. And so first I did was set up like the kitchen pantry with a 1,000-watt light when I got to the house. The day I moved in, and then those guys came over the next day, gave me a Diesel 2 plant, so I threw that right into the. They gave it to me in a 3-gallon pot, so it went right into the flower room, and that was the only time I ever grew that Diesel 2.
Damn.
Fool. That was a good plant. She was a really good plant. I'm smoking on something that might be her right now.
So you
from our buddy in Vermont.
Damn. You guys okay, so Maxwell, back to you were saying that you had this room going and things were like really starting to turn around at this house with your guys' little
Yeah, things were
collaboration.
good, right? I mean, things were good for Vondo and I. We cranked along in the first house until like fall of '95, and then like we had things rolling well enough that we could afford for him to break off and do a second house. And we got that set up next door to Joe. And yeah, Vondo started running the number 2 there. I think he was running the Purple Kush too, because people did like it. It just wasn't, it wasn't Chem 91 on steroids, which really kind of what
I find a
Diesel
lot of the
number 2
purples
was.
you know, I think they sacrificed some of that photosynthetic capacity for that purple shit. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it was a little lightweight, but when you're looking at the time in jail we were looking at, a 50-day worker wasn't 50-day worker wasn't horrible either.
yeah, for
Because
sure.
she finished fast,
Have you
lightning fast.
was it ever, like, have you guys ever seen Purple Trainwreck? That's what it makes me like think of. Like if you guys have ever
Mm-mm.
seen, doesn't matter. Keep going. This is awesome.
No, that PK the PK we had back then looks an awful lot like the LV PK that floats around these days. But what do I know? Science could only ever tell. Um,
Maybe someday.
Damn.
yeah, you never know. But anyway, so yeah, all was good, right? But just like anything, people get greedy, people get jealous, and it wasn't really any of the direct folks, right? Like things were good with Vondo and I. He was staying more engaged with the scene in the city than I was at that point, but he and I were still tight, and we're still tight today. Joe and I stayed tight, but like one of the things probably that kept Joe and I's relationship cleaner than any of the other relationships in all of this is like we really have only ever been friends.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we'd sell each other kind bud, but like we never did work bullshit together, right? I wasn't slinging him pounds of bullshit Mexican. He wasn't slinging me pounds of bullshit Mexican. So like
We knew
it
all the
was
same people. We knew who was full of shit, and like
right.
But there was
we,
never
we
a
could check
conflict of
in and just
interest,
be like,
basically.
"Yeah, man, these people are full of shit, man." Like
Right. There was never a conflict of
there
interest.
were
There
some
was
real
never like
loonies around back in the day that were in positions of authority, and so we kind of we'd sit around and like laugh about it, and sort of it was like there was always a good commentary.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
sounds like you guys were like a healthy crew. Like you go out and you like helped each other like
You know what? Like
grow
I
though.
would go out and find the best weed in New York, and I would sell it to all the guys from Albany at my cost. We
Damn.
called it the rainbow prices. All right, like no tax
Right.
on cash. That's your medicine. Like I'm not. We wouldn't make money off of each other in that capacity. We would always that was like kind of like a rule. Like head stash, you don't make money on. You make money on
Yeah.
Mexican.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
classy. It's good to your friends.
Right. And there was definitely not enough good weed at that point in time that any of us were making any of it available to our custies.
For sure.
Like it never got past like the circle, right? There was probably maybe a dozen names we could put on the table between the two of us if we completely defined the circle. And we probably shouldn't because some of them wouldn't want their names tossed around, right? But
Maybe not.
like not a huge group, right? And like that's where all the kind bud went. That's where all the kind bud stayed. It sounds terrible, but it just was how it is what it is. There was only enough for us. It
Yeah.
wasn't that we were like necessarily hoarding it. It was like you'd get what you had and you'd look at your well, it wasn't jars back then most of the time, to be honest, right? You'd look at your bag and you'd be like, all right, so it's this many more weeks till the next clop. There'll probably definitely be something, 2 weeks out that wanders in from the West Coast, like maybe the Washington Hydro or something like that, right? So you didn't share. But things started getting better, right? We had our house going. Joe was starting to get going. Clop was still going. Bondo got his house. So now there's, more houses. Everybody's firing on all cylinders, and there is starting to be more and more. And more people are starting to make a living off of it. And you know how that goes. Like, people get sour grapes. um,
People were
Very nice.
crazy on me for diesel. Like I left the city, but the few people that I kept when I left the city as like people that were customers and like business people that I worked with, like they were hounding me like crazy. So I was just telling like everyone upstate, like, just if you bring me all your weed, I'll get you the most money for it because these people are crazy. They'll pay anything for it. They just need to get it right now. So I everyone kind of like figured out that like, oh, if you give it to fucking Joe, he'll you can charge him, 72 or even 76 or 8 because he's got people in the city that'll pay 92 or 96 for it.
Yeah.
And so I so I ended up kind of like forcing my way into all of it because I was like, no, bring me your weed too, because I can't grow enough for these people. They're crazy. They're like calling me every day. I told them not for 3 months. And so yeah, people were bound to get sour because there was like a lot of anxiety around, like for every gram of bud, there was like 20 people that wanted that gram and were like competing with one another for it.
Yeah, you'd literally be like, even in the circle, you'd be like swatting people off. Like, guys, it's not dry yet.
No,
And I
actually,
gotta come, I gotta come
Bondo,
by, bro.
I
Dude,
learned
I
from
mean, like,
Bondo. Bondo is like you roll up your leaves into joints. And when people come up to you at like events and concerts, you just hand them a big fat joint of leaf, and you're like, I can't share this whole joint for yourself. Like you had to like have a strategy when you went out to keep the fucking hose off of you, whether people
yeah.
knew it or
Oh man.
And then even people like they'd be like, "I'll buy it early. I don't care." You'd be like, "I need more time to dry it," and they'd be like, "I don't care. I'll just come over." And then you'd finally cave, but at the same time, you'd cave and be like, "Well, fine, but I'm not changing my price."
God, I miss
So
weed
now
like that.
you've literally got people sitting on your couch being like, "Oh yeah, okay," and you're charging them like $500, and it's a week early in terms of the process
Yeah,
to
you
get
just
it
got to say
dried,
like
right?
it's six hundred
people would
dollars because
bring
I have to
money over to
remember
my
that shit now.
people would bring money to my house and be like, listen, here's $9,000. You just save me a pound when it's ready. And I'd be like, dude, it's not going to be ready for like 2 months. And they'd be like, I don't care. I'll leave the money here for now, hold on
Oh.
to it and please save that for me. So yeah, people got like crazy over it. And so, yeah, so we had way too much probably like power, and you had to like try to keep a cool head and not become like a tyrant, because it did give you like power over people, and people were crazy for it. And you didn't. It got to the point where I didn't even want to answer the phone, and like I didn't want to talk to people because they were just like calling up, like, "Hey, how you doing?" I'd be getting like way too many calls every day from people, and I'd be like, "I know why you're calling. It's not ready for 6 weeks. Please leave me alone." So yeah, we
Yeah,
thought that was like so mean when we met him, but then we eventually all had to turn into him a little bit just to protect ourselves.
yeah, yeah. It's funny. I mean, it really is true. Like by the time I left in the summer of '96, everything I was producing went to two people. That was it. Nobody else. I didn't talk to anybody else about product work, nothing. I mean, yeah, I'd smoke with people and, people knew who I was and what I had, but like two customers, that was it. Because it was just too much. It was too much to deal with. And like they were the two people that had kind of learned over time, don't harass the living shit out of me. Just take the date that I tell you it's going to be ready and show up with cash.
Did you guys ever
There was
fear?
no credit, no fronts. Get the hell out. If you didn't have cash, you weren't leaving the house with my place with anything.
God, that is that's
Because the
incredible.
credit the credit had been what made the business beforehand collapse.
Yeah,
Everything being built on the cuff was the reason we all ended up in a problem,
yeah, I get
right?
that.
Like, so I learned my lesson, right? It was like, no, I'm not fronting anybody anything.
No, and
These
it was like this become the shadiest person philosophy, because we saw what happens when you get involved in things that are bigger than you.
Yeah. And
did you
and remember, it was like I wanted it simpler. I just wanted to grow weed so I had enough money to live my life and smoke kind bud all day long.
Oh God,
It was that simple. It really was that simple. I mean, it's probably like, my parents are both dead, but I'm sure they're rolling in their graves because, like, that's the least ambitious thing you ever want to hear your kids say, right? It's like, oh, yeah, my goal in life at the time was to sit on the couch. But it's the truth.
I mean, it's still my goal. Shit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie. I mean, I've had a career, but I do still prefer to sit on the couch.
cheers to
I
that.
had to
Yeah.
have a career for the kids, but, um, I'd much rather be right where I am right now on the couch, and or taking care of the garden.
I feel like,
So
isn't it weird to think that you guys like had all these people cherishing your weed, like probably like stashing it and like hiding it, just like you guys are saying, like from other people, like where they like preserve it probably forever and like probably smoked it with the most like valued intent ever. it's
yeah, it's
it's
weird. I mean, the
impressive.
whole thing is weird, right? And like nobody started out with any kind of plan, right? And it's just like the sour. I mean, you will never hear me say I bred the sour diesel. Everybody out there listening or in the chat or wherever, just to be clear, nobody bred the sour diesel. The sour diesel ended up getting here because she wanted to get here. And that was it,
Hell yeah.
right? Like I had no intention at all. The seeds that Bondo and I kept from that plant in Schenectady that we ended up calling the number 2 and running, we didn't intentionally make those seeds, and we have no idea which of the plants that were in that room made those seeds. It could be self seeds, it could be purple kush, it could be RFK. Not a fucking clue. But we kept them because it was the best plant, and we figured, well, they're probably good seeds.
Life will find a way. On that
Yeah, they're
note, I'm
probably
sorry to
good
cut it short,
seeds,
guys,
right?
but I've got to head out.
You're leaving me?
Yeah, I'm leaving you. I'm sorry. You'll find
Oh,
another, I'm
well.
sure. But at least wait a couple weeks, for propriety's sake.
Well,
Anyway, it was very
Andrew,
nice to talk to you guys, man. It's
Yeah,
just
me
an
too.
honor. Thank you very much.
thanks, Andrew. Sorry, guys. Be careful, Andrew.
Yeah.
Tell me when you get home.
Thanks, Mom.
I was about to say that. Yes, Mom.
All right. I think. Wait, no. I was thinking about it. So the sour diesel. How do
Yeah.
you like? How did that really like? Did you find like? Was that the number 2 that you're talking about? Was that the?
So the number 2, I guess, for lack of any more accurate genetic description, is Sour Diesel's mom. So when Vondo got his second house, things were coupling along good for me. Remember, I now have just doubled my income, right? Because we were splitting the house. Now the whole house is mine. So life is good. He's got his whole own house. And Joe's doing well. And all throughout there's this other guy, this friend of all of ours named Manny. If the world knows him as Manny, and I'll respect that, and we'll keep it Manny for tonight. And so Manny was hanging out, and Manny didn't work. Manny was just, a friend. He'd go places with us and hang out, and he loved to smoke kind and everything. But he didn't have a hustle like the rest of us. He was just part of the friend group. But Vondo decided to help set Manny up and get him another house, courtesy of Jeff, Prince, and Al. And set him up with a garden so that he could start to have a hustle, because why the hell not? And Vonda would have a hand in that, and it would benefit them both. So that's
There's going to be watching this, and they're going to be like, "I rented a house from Jeff, Prince, and Al too."
Yeah.
We were probably the most innocent people that were renting houses from them. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, Vondo helped Hal get a house. And at the time he did that, he gave Hal the seeds that he had kept from that first Schenectady run. So his half of the number 2 seeds are what Hal started his garden with. I think Vondo may have also given him some cuts of the number 2. I would suspect he did, but I didn't see that happen, so I don't know. We'd have to get Vondo on and talk to him and see if he did or didn't, or remembers. Maybe Joe remembers if Manny got the 2. But my guess is he did. But the bulk of what he ran was those seeds that Vondo gave him from what we kind of called our diesel, or the diesel number 2. And sometime probably in like the April time frame is when he finished up his run of those, April of '96. and one of those is the sour diesel. So that's what Manny kept and ran um, as the sour. Random seeds from a random garden in Schenectady. Um, and as luck would have it, he ended up with some of them. And that's kind of my role in it. I helped those seeds come into the world in Schenectady. I was doing my thing with the number two. I didn't give the seeds to Hal or Manny. Well, everybody knows both. So sorry, brother. But you know, shit happens. Um,
Cut that part
but
out.
I remember. Yeah, maybe you can edit that before we go to YouTube. But I do remember Vondo giving them to Manny because I wasn't sure it was the best idea in the world. I wouldn't have given my part of those seeds out at that point in time.
Mm.
Um, I would have given Manny the two, just like I gave Joe the two.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I was sitting on those seeds partly because I wasn't ready to look for anything else. Like I said, things were good. Um,
Makes sense.
but sometime also that spring, my ex-wife and I got pregnant, and so with pressure from her needing to be around her family, we kind of wrapped up the garden in June of '96, um, and left the Catskills and headed to Massachusetts to have some kids.
Did you
But
feel?
that's kind of the sour. That's where the sour came from. What motivated Manny at the end of the day to call it sour diesel? I've seen stuff on the internet where it's like, well, the bag of seeds that Bondo had said sour diesel on them, which is right. We probably both labeled our pack sour diesel because that's what we went looking for and that's what we found, right? Um, and then Hal just stuck an S in front of it. Well, someone's going to have to ask him.
I
I
can.
don't know. Other people say it's because everything was sour and there was a lot of grouchy balls going around, and that could be true too, right? I mean, things were it was weird. Things got good, but things were difficult, and there was always that looming thing about all the heinous shit that happened in the summer of '94, and it takes a long time to get over that. You know, some people never do. There's some parts of us that never did. I don't think
I
it
was gonna.
definitely changed all of our lives.
Yeah, it sounds like there would be some heartache with like, well, a lot of these parts of the journey is like, I don't know. I feel like that would be hard. That it just sounds like that would be difficult. Exciting to make, a family and change and grow in that aspect, but then I'm sure it was like difficult to like preserve these things and go through all of this work and effort and sacrifice and I don't know, you grow attachment to plants. I feel like that's obviously why you guys have been able to preserve these things and flourish.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you definitely do, and I mean, walking away when I did was definitely not easy. It was like probably. I mean, I'm not going to downplay quitting heroin, but like I definitely had to go cold turkey. I ghosted everybody, and like I carry some guilt over that to this day, right? Because like these guys were all just like, where the fuck did he go? Because we literally packed up and just split. But I knew it was the only way I could get out,
Mm.
right? Like I knew if I was going to be able to go and like live close enough to my wife's family, to pull off at least the pretense of being a normal human being, I was going to have to break free for a while, because otherwise I would have kept a garden going, and that was just going to be a problem. Like it was not something her family or my family at the time that was in the Northeast were going to be okay with when we had kids. Um, they'd have been too afraid of what might have happened to the kids. So yeah, I ghosted everybody in the summer of '96,
I
and
didn't see him again until the fall of 2018.
Cow.
yeah,
It might
at
have
the
been
Emerald.
17. Might have been. It was either 17 or
I think it was
8.
17 at the Emerald Cup.
That's how you guys
Yeah,
reconnected?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Oh,
intentionally at the Emerald Cup.
Oh, I
Yeah,
see.
because I I had run into so I didn't see anybody for years, like decades. Now I'll feel old, but whatever. And then I had made my way out to Cali in like '04 for my day job. Maybe yeah, 2004 or so. Um, and at that point, we got far enough away from family again, and medical was good to go. So I scripted up and, started playing around for the head stash again. Um, and in 2008, went bouncing into the grow shop in Santa Cruz to stock up on a bunch of stuff. And there was Vondo.
No
And,
way.
yeah, standing
All
behind the
those years
counter.
later.
Yeah, like
That's
just
amazing.
wham. So yeah, out of nowhere, he and I reconnected at Santa Cruz Hydro in about '08, and yeah, we started hanging out again for a bit, and my life was still pretty chaotic. At that point in time, my marriage was kind of winding down, so that made things a bit complicated. But we stayed in touch for a bit, and when he reconnected with Joe, what was that? I don't know. You guys reconnected before you and I did.
yeah, we reconnected
Um,
summer of 2017 because he hit me up and was like, "Hey, you living out in Cali?" And we connected from there.
yeah, yeah. And so then you guys made plans to do Emerald Cup, and I was like, well, fuck it, I'll come along. Um, and yeah, that's how Joe and I reconnected, and that's when I met Hetty Monster too. That same weekend at Joe's house. Again, Joe's house was the place to be. It had just moved from a crappy apartment in New York City to a pretty nice little house in Santa Rosa.
Yeah, well, I always tried to specialize in hospitality.
I was gonna say
Yeah.
your house always seems to be the spot, AJ. I think that's.
That way,
I'm sorry.
So yeah, like I said, it's the most complicated simple story there really ever was.
I can't believe. So, how long do you guys still have these cuts?
Um, I might have the number two. I just got something from a friend of Joe and I's that I think is it. Um, and I'm gonna give it a run here and see what we think.
That's
I'm
exciting.
smoking some of it, and it definitely, you know, brings back memories. Um, there is a friend of ours that has a copy of it that they've had since '96, but his copy's whooped, like beyond whooped.
Ooh, I can
It
help you.
just,
I swear. I won't take it or anything, but I swear I can help you.
yeah, I might grab a copy of that from him and get it to somebody and see if they can spruce it up. But I got some from him and tried, and you know, had a rough summer, a couple summers back, and didn't really get it healthy. But she needs some love. She needs some work. I bet she's got some kind of creepy virus or something. But
I just.
and
um,
just to be clear, like even though Manny ran all those seeds, it's to my understanding, and I think everybody agrees that there was only one plant selected and called sour diesel, and that is still to this
Oh,
day the only sour diesel. Every
okay.
yeah, yeah,
not sour
yeah,
diesel.
Okay.
right.
That makes
So
me. Thank you.
yeah, our diesel number two, whatever you want to call that. I think some people probably in all the forums maybe think it's original diesel. I don't really know. There's a lot of diesel that gets thrown around. To us, we all joke, right? AJ, Bondo, me, JJ. To all of us, the original diesel was just renamed Chem 91 because it was
Holy
Mikey's Chem
shit.
that we
I
started
can't.
calling diesel because people didn't like the name Chem.
And before that, I mean, when P Bud sold weed to Greg, and Greg got the what he called Chem Dog, which was the 91 and the Chem this and that. Um, that all came from weed that was called Dog Bud from Oregon and California. So really, like Sour Diesel from Diesel, which is Chem Dog from Dog Bud. And so really, what people, instead of bickering about what is sour, people should really be trying to find out what is Dog Bud and where does that come from.
Yeah.
How can we track that down before it's too late? Because that's boomer generation weed, and really, like, the people that can explain that are a dying breed. So that's really what people should be concerned with.
It's going to miss
Yeah.
him, gentlemen.
And none of us have a clue. I mean, like, we don't have a clue where that hailed from. I mean, parts of the universe, right? It was West Coast for sure, but the genetics behind it, no clue.
I just can't believe when you look at a strain like Sour Diesel, it's like, it's weird. Is I remember even when I first started smoking weed, like really smoking weed, is Sour Diesel and like Flow were probably like the two choices. Like, I don't know. And I feel like Sour Diesel was like my favorite. And I remember growing it in like 2009 to like 2013, where I had the real deal, I felt like. And it was just because my boss was from Syracuse, and he like brought the cut back from the East Coast, and I don't know, it was like finicky, but like once you got it dialed in, she would like explode. She like loved life. And
Hmm.
I've never seen anything like it again ever since then. Like I'm around a lot of people and a lot of genetics that, like, they say are Sour Diesel, and I just don't see it the way that I remember it.
Yeah.
It's the most
I don't know where.
genetic.
Yeah, I don't know where all the cuts come from, because Joe's right. There was only one. Manny picked one. He picked his favorite, just like all the rest of us did. We were idiots. We weren't we weren't breeding. We were trying to find the best thing, and then we wanted to grow that best thing, right? So Manny found his favorite, and that was the Sour Diesel.
Do you
And
guys?
before the internet goes crazy and says, "Oh, they lost it. See, they lost it." No, we lost the number two.
Mm,
I have
but you might have it.
tangible leads on where it may be,
Yeah.
but I myself have lost the number two. Sour Diesel's alive and well and is where it always has been. I've got it. Joe's got it. There's several of us that have it. I've got some growing right now. So, that is got little to nothing to do with me, because I didn't have lights. I didn't run a garden for a really long time. Like, a lot of that is, what Joe's done these past decades is kind of make sure she stayed safe. And to be fair, Manny too. He has what he has tucked away as well, right? Like,
How did
so
it feel to like see something that you guys like made, though, like come across come across the map? Like when you look at, everybody knows Diesel. Everybody's like, I don't know, people that don't even smoke weed know Sour Diesel. And
Well, like,
yeah,
look, we willed it to happen because it had to happen because we were so desperate to get Diesel. And since Klopp was the only source for it, And in '94, when I spent the summer in Amsterdam, when I got back from Amsterdam, I brought weed from Amsterdam and I showed it to Klopp, and he wanted to trade with me and was like super amped up about the weed I had, which was funny. Funny enough, it was grown by Adam Dunn. And so I got him he came to my house the next day with an ounce of Chem Dog to trade from his head stash for an ounce of what I had and from Amsterdam, and he got so amped on it, he went to Amsterdam like a few days later and came home with seeds. And that's probably the reason why we all got seeds. So it's like we were all so anxious, like really what I think, like I don't say, that's why I never say, oh, like, this guy created it or that guy created it. We all had to have it so bad that we basically willed it collectively to happen. And so that we had to have that weed in our lives, we had to have Chem in our lives. And so, yeah, basically through a collective effort, what we did do is that when the bus came by, we got on, like there was
oh hell yeah,
no choice about it. It was like this is where we're going. Like we're going wherever the diesel is. Like that was the only thing we knew for sure.
Well, I feel
Well, yeah,
like
because one thing that became abundantly clear in '93 and '94 is, and this is not a dig, but it's the reality. Klopp could not produce enough. Period. One person couldn't, right? Because he was not just doing it either. This was not his only gig. The reason he was able to take us to the grow shop is because he worked a real job on the same street, so his car could be there and nobody noticed. So, if there's not enough, people got to figure out a way to make more, and the only way to make more was more people grow it. Um, and that's where other people come into the story. Like, the bro who teamed up with Manny after Manny had his place and found his thing and started doing what they tried to do, um, largely trying to get it going in Holland, which, as I understand it, really never got to the finish line for various reasons, right? And like, that's his story to tell. Um, and there's other people that were getting cuts from Manny or getting cuts from Joe and starting to expand the footprint so that you could keep up with demand. Um, but it was
there's
still a close circle, really close, that had the real cut until things got crazy. Um, and Joe really knows more about that. Fondo would too than I did because it kind of started to happen more after I split.
let's talk about it, AJ.
From there, yeah, I moved back from the Catskills back down to New York and started building grows in New York and started and just kept it going and a couple of decades went by and and then eventually I was living as the story goes, I moved out to the West Coast and hung out there for almost a decade and kind of like chilled out from the whole thing. I mean, it was a lot of pressure. I built a lot of grows for a lot of other people. So a lot of people are like, "Oh, I didn't get a cut from AJ." No, you got a cut from a guy who got a cut from me, who got a cut from another guy, who got a cut from another guy. But I got the cut. I did a lot to get the cut out there. I could never. There was an insatiable thirst for sour, and there was no way there could ever be enough. So I helped a lot of people. I built a lot of rows for a lot of people, and we kind of like uh, I in New York we took it from there, and in New York City is where it seemed to really blow up. Celebrities and artists got a hold of it and made it the cultural phenomenon that it became.
That's pretty okay, AJ. I remember you mentioning before that you came to Colorado, and helped with some grows out here. What year was it? 2016 ish.
January of 2015, I moved to Denver.
Okay, that was a pretty poppin' market here at that time, and sour diesel was still really popular here, like it always is. But did you? I don't know. What was your experience like coming here and like seeing the grows and like coming into these facilities? Like,
Well, in 2015, um, I knew how to grow weed. I knew how to build a grow. I knew how to run a grow. The largest build I'd done is probably 30 lights. So
it's a lot though.
um, so to come out and be like, oh yeah, I'm taking over, 700 lights worth of grows, and they all have bugs and PM and diseases, and it's explosive, and we didn't even know what HLV was back then, but like, some plants just didn't look right for whatever reason. And it was a lot of money at stake. I could ordinarily, if I took over a shitty grow, which I'd done in the past, I'd do a total reset. But in this case, I had to just pick up the shambles of what was going on and kind of like start bringing things to term. And so that was really challenging. And basically, uh, I wound up having a lot of disagreements with the people that owned the grows, and I wound up being put in charge of a 50 light grow. And as soon as I created an SOP and brought sours and other plants to term there, yeah, they locked me out of the building and were like, "Thanks, we don't need you anymore." So that was my experience in Colorado, and then I had a bunch of similar experiences in California as well. But it's kind of like the thing. It's like the weed business. Nothing seems to ever work out.
Mm-hmm.
Ended. It's like you just
Empty promises.
yeah. A low batting average is still a good one in the weed business.
I think those are the things though that are like heartache in the beginning. I think you get used to it the more often it happens, but I think that must have been hard though, seeing how close you guys were for all those years, putting something on the map, and then coming here and having like, and going to California and seeing like a completely different, I don't know.
Yeah, grows with fire exit lanes in them and stuff. It's totally different concept that we were used to.
Changes the vibe.
We were like, no, let's put all the plants on the floor, and there's not, crawl around to get to them. So,
Yeah.
totally different style of production, but at the same time, like it was great because there was a lot to learn as far as like, I mean, we have bugs and diseases today that are more highly evolved than what we dealt with in the past. And I feel like even though we didn't have access to the internet and we didn't have all the access to all the information that a new grower would have now, we also didn't have a lot of the problems that I feel like grows have today.
Yeah, I think I've even seen that in the last 15 years where, I don't know, like 5, 6 years ago, it wasn't as crazy as it is now. Like maybe 10. I don't know. I feel back to your guys' journey.
We never had plant problems back then.
Really?
Nothing.
God,
No bugs. No powdery mildew. Nothing.
I would have never had a job. I feel like I can't believe.
Sure you would. You would have had a house. You would have hung lights. You would have sat there, and people would have showed up, and you would have sat on your couch and made money.
I just love when you guys talk about like actually like valuing cuts like this, finding seeds in your weed, like appreciating weed, and then like really creating this, like, to me that's like connoisseur weed. Like when people say like marketing and packaging and all this other stuff, it's not like that to me. It's like, I guess that's like valuable to some point, yes, but when you're like don't want to share it, like the stuff that you guys were talking about, and when you really hold on to something or you find something and it's like special, you like know it's special, and you're like, I'm gonna take a chance on this. Like when you were talking about popping these first rooms and like some of your guys' first grow spaces, like, and risking it all, you're like getting evicted from your house. Like,
Yeah.
We were all in.
I love it.
Yeah. All in, for sure.
And yeah, like good weed wasn't for making money on back then. Like that's what like shitty weed was for. Like we were all in just for the love of the weed, and then it turned into money because it made people so crazy.
Because you loved it. I think
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
magical.
I just didn't want a real job.
Yeah, I tried.
Plain
I
plain
mean,
and simple. Like real
it's
jobs got in the way of dead shows, fish shows, widespread panic. I mean, like going to wetlands, and like it all stems back to like what we wanted to be. Every single one of us wanted to be the guy that walked into the room where everybody in the room's got weed out, and you pull out your weed, and everybody turns because they smell it.
oh.
Like that was the goal for all of us. Like, be the guy that walks into the room, everyone's got their jar open, you crack your jar open, and everybody's like, what the hell have you got over there? And like that's what Klopp had with the chem. It's what we had when we had our stuff going, and it's what Manny ended up with the sour. You walked into a room with a jar of that and opened the jar, and everybody noticed. Like when Chem would go to, or when Klopp would go to the wetlands with his Chem and go downstairs, you'd have 150 people sitting around down there, all be like, "Damn, that guy's got some good weed on him," as he walked across the room.
That is
And
impressive.
that was the goal, right? Like that was the goal.
And I would quickly usher him into the back office and be like, "Never mind all those papers. Come back here with me. We'll
Yeah.
take care of it in the back."
And it was a challenge too, right? Good weed like that also made things difficult sometimes. Like I remember going to the city, picking up a duffel bag's worth of work, and whatever amount of chem I was able to get my hands on that trip. And I happened to be doing the train thing that time. And I tossed the big duffel bag with it had to have at least, 30 in it and an ounce or two of chem. And I just throw it up above me and I'm sitting there on the train. And like we get out of Penn Station and I start to realize, fuck, the whole train stinks like chem, right? And you're
Oh
just
my
like,
god.
damn. And there's nothing you can do. So like you just sit there for the next 2.5
Okay.
hours stinking up the car, and you grab your duffel bag and you go home. But like,
You're like, please don't
that
look
was
at
our
me.
lives. Right. Please don't mind me, Mr. Business people and lawmakers headed up to Albany.
I
But,
just
we also were, mostly by and large, I mean, you could probably tell from the looks of us today, we were also, pretty much middle class white kids in and around New York City. So like we didn't stick out at all. There was nothing noticeable or interesting or, you know, attention worthy about really any of us in a place like New York or on Dead Lot. And that's kind of,
I don't
we
know.
kind of, I think, all like relished in that, like we could have our world and be somewhat anonymous because we didn't stick out wherever we went. We just kind of blended in.
It's a camouflage tactic.
Yeah.
Were you guys camouflaged at the concerts that you went to?
We were probably the more normal looking people, yeah.
Yeah, I
We were
mean, well,
the
look,
least
there were people in the circle with dreads. There were others that, like, even back then had shorter hair. I mean, like, I usually kept my hair short because I'm fucking lazy. So, uh, wash and go is more my style. Uh, but yeah, it was all different stuff. No, nobody cared. Like I said, we were like all the misfits. It was just a bunch of deadheads, and like in the '90s, deadheads were from like every different walk of life, bikers, weirdos, geeks, nerds, whatever, for all of them mixed together, and nobody gave a crap. And that
Yeah.
was kind of our group too.
we were young enough too that like we didn't look like hardened criminals. We looked like
No,
innocent kids that were just idiots.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
that's
but like we
impressive.
did stupid shit too, and like, yeah, I mean, look, why are we still here? Who knows?
I think it's
I
cool that
mean,
you
like
guys like weren't
the van we
flaunting.
toured around. Yeah, we weren't flaunting, but we weren't particularly like super low key about things either. Like I was on tour in a friggin' red van with red shag carpeting and a 4-foot bong that we kept safe with bungee cords strapped to the wall when we drove from venue to venue, right? So like had we been pulled over, the first thing that cops would have seen would have been like 4 people in a really sketchy van. And then all they'd have to do is look for 2 seconds and they'd see a big giant 4-foot bong, bungee corded to the inside wall of the van. So like,
Be like, at least it's
I
secure.
mean, yeah,
There was
yeah,
number. There was 100,000 vehicles filled with people that looked shadier than us on
yep, And it was probably good that we all wanted to smoke so much kind bud because it didn't give us money to go like buy other flashy shit. We spent all our money on weed.
Yeah.
Like I had an okay apartment, but I drove whatever piece of crap car I could get my hands on because I didn't care. I'd rather buy more weed.
I can relate to that. These,
Yeah,
I
I mean things change. Like you know, kind of appreciate a nice ride nowadays. But like
oh,
I don't know. And like Joe said, it's not like we were not far enough up any kind of food chain in anybody's universe that we were like, making gobs and gobs of money. We were making enough money to let ourselves not have to go and get a real job and be able to like goof off and go see shows all the time and go on vacation a little bit. But I was definitely not rich.
I think that's really like nice and humble of you guys to be like that. It's refreshing. I think, okay, are we missing
Yeah,
anything? I don't want to miss
I
this
don't know.
opportunity of missing anything.
Well, I mean, that's up to Maxwell. You got anything to add?
No, I mean I think we've covered like the key points in how it got here, right? Like I'm not sure why there's so much confusion all these years later, and I don't really know where a lot of these different cuts came from, but there is only one sour diesel, and it's something that just ended up here. We all got kind of lucky, um, and she's pretty fire smoke, but you know,
Definitely.
I don't know about all these different cuts. Like people are asking me all the time, like, "Well, what about this and what about that?" I just don't know. All I can tell you is they're not sour.
You're like negative.
Yeah,
I believe you most definitely because I've always like sought after it because it is so distinctive and it's just it's impossible for me to find as well. I
Well,
think
to make it more confusing is that there's a multitude of genetic expressions within that same plant. And so, really, depending on atmosphere and conditions, you get two totally different outcomes from the same plant. That and that there's also a ton of counterfeit plants and crosses and other things. I'm sure other people went on to find bag seeds. I found tons of bag seeds in sour over the years. I have a ton of bag seeds from sour from over 20 years ago,
that
and
you
I'm
still held onto.
still do it. Yeah, I still
yeah,
have them.
yeah.
Anyone
They're
wants to
around.
help germinate them, let me know. I tried germinating a couple of them
Oh,
conventional a few years ago, and to no avail. So I've never wanted to risk destroying them by trying again.
oh my gosh, let's find the perfect moment, AJ. Oh, I feel like it'd be so incredible to see. It's so cool that you still have them.
Together and let's figure this out. But, uh,
Oh,
but I'm
But they'll
sure.
be totally rando. I mean, like, and just like, I mean, and I think, one explanation for all the cuts out there too, like, hey, I had a cold spot in the first house with Bondo in the Catskills. Every once in a while, the plant in the back right corner would throw an anner.
mm-hmm.
And that means the seed could have got out here and there. And like, those would express an awful lot like the seeds that Manny got too, potentially. Because
See, now you're opening the
I'm
door
not.
for.
I'm not.
I got one
Well,
of those.
yeah, sure. Who knows? Who cares? Look,
Oh, I'm so excited.
but that's the thing. I mean, I don't know where they all came from, but like the story I told tonight is how Manny ended up with sour. That's the sour Joe got from that whole situation too. Um, and anybody that's got it's pretty blessed because it's a nice plant. She's finicky now. And I think, people ask like, well, why does it seem different now than back then? There's a lot of things that existed back then that don't exist anymore.
Definitely.
Like I run LEDs now. I ran these noisy, dangerous fire hazard, analog HPS and metal halide ballasts back then, and spun them around in a circle in the room on a sun circle. Some people had them on light movers. Some people just hung them still. We all ran Home Depot Pro Mix.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody, nobody was using anything fancy, right? So whatever the Pro Mix recipe back in the mid '90s was, that was part of the secret sauce of it.
It
What
probably.
everybody's like, where is the '90s sour? Go ask Promix, right? Go ask the ballast manufacturers. Go ask, all our landlords what, hey, can we test the water in your well? I mean, there's just so many variables that played a factor, I think. And, you know, I'm not going to lie, I haven't grown a plant of sour in the last decade that looks like it did then.
Mm.
And I know damn well the multiple times I've tried it, it's always been the real cut. And it always comes out great, but it's not exactly the same. But I don't have that equipment anymore either. And those ingredients. And I'm not
Well,
running,
And
1995 General Hydro.
people need to chill on the Wi-Fi too. Like everyone's running equipment in their rooms on Wi-Fi now, which can't be helping either.
I if you guys if you guys would like, we could do a show about this, but we can work on anything together, and like I said, I will never do anything with it, share anything, but we could even show fixing it. Because it does happen with like those old school genetics, and like if you do baby I don't know, the LEDs, honestly, that's the one thing I don't really talk about often, but I'm not crazy about, because I think these diseases like fusarium and botrytis or HLVD, all these different things, I think are expressing more in LEDs, like, or under LEDs in comparison to like even, I don't know, any HPS or CMH or I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't run pure HPS in a really, really long time, but I was running CMH back in Cali for quite a while. And, I won't say whose lights I use so that I don't get myself in trouble, but I like the output from the CMH better than what I'm getting so far out of the LEDs. Big Star, though, it was a hell of a lot hotter, and I had a lot more environmental issues I had to deal with. But that was more like it was back in the day when we ran 1,000-watt metal halides and 1,000-watt HPSs too. Yeah, I'm not sold that LED's perfect yet either, and I'm less. I think it's got less to do about the spectrum and more to do about the environment it fails to create because it doesn't warm things up and dry them out enough.
I completely agree with that. What do you think, AJ?
Well, I like LEDs for a lot of reasons, and I think that eventually all the genetics will just evolve around them and
Yeah.
the way things are going, whether we like it or not. But it's not a bad idea to break out older, like when you're growing some of these older genetics, like ham and sour. I think
I love hearing you guys say that. Thank you. And
one
hearing
thing
us.
that's nice though is that it used to be that I would get these little gnats and they would fly into the bulb and then drop down onto the top of the bud. And now with LED, that doesn't seem to happen anymore.
That's very
They're
true.
not the flies, so it's the little gnats. So yeah, at least that doesn't happen anymore.
Do you guys
But that,
remember the triple X's? How they would have the glass, and it would like, you'd always break the sheet because you'd have to slide it before they had hinges. You'd have to like slide it out.
yeah,
And
yeah, that never seemed to work. I mean, you just ended up taking the shield off and
yeah,
Yeah.
aside and forgetting about the ventilated hoods because it was stupid. Yeah.
exactly.
Yep.
Otherwise, they'd be covered in bugs. I remember I put ladybugs in my room one time. Straight into the
And they
lights.
just burn They burn the bulbs faster too, because I don't know. Yeah, they were no good.
That's true.
Open
Um,
hoods.
Maxwell,
Let them cool.
I like that. Okay, so your dispensary, or okay, your wild den. Tell me about your cannabis. Your hashtag.
Oh,
This
Wild Mountain Cannabis. I
wild.
don't. It's just kind of a name I came up with somewhere. I don't know, in the early two, like after I moved to Cali. I started doing my thing a little bit in Cupertino at first, and then we moved up into the Santa Cruz Mountains after I got lights going and got a few patients under the good old Prop 215 days when you could be a caregiver for folks. And that's kind of what I started doing my caregiving as was Wild Mountain Cannabis. Um, yeah, nowadays I'm, you know, hanging out doing my thing here in New York again. Made the trek back east a couple years ago. Um, and now actually like, growing and picking males and selecting females and breeding with some intention instead of, you know, accidentally creating seeds that get gifted to friends like back then. Um, so I think I mentioned that I met Hetty Monster, um, who's a real good friend of mine now, through Joe. And I guess it was 2017. And he's another one. He's younger than Joe and I, but he's definitely got that eye and that drive for that fire. Um, he's younger, so he doesn't call it the kind. he was chasing the fire. We were chasing the kind.
I love
But
that.
yeah, but he and I hit it off, and a couple years ago we decided to do start anyway a little project between whatever I had in my library and his pink starburst. Um,
Pink
so
starburst.
yeah, if you've never tried the pink starburst, you're definitely missing out on.
I already
You
feel
know,
sad.
I think one of the better sour diesel hybrids uh, that have come along in terms of just like interesting, unique terps.
Mhm.
And like that's what I like to look for, right? Like the gas is around, right? There's a lot of people doing gas work.
I want
And
your
I've got some stuff
guys's
that like throws down some
math.
gaslight, gas too, right? Like you mess around with, MB15 and anything, and yeah, some of the offspring are going to be gassy. But, the Pink Starburst dad brought some really cool like funk and blueberry expressions into the mix. So there's cool stuff there. And, you know, that's why I played around with Joe's yellow Subaru this summer too, because the cut I found is crazy terpy. I mean, he can probably describe that one better than me, but like I come up with kind of like a hazy NL5 haze with a little gas from the RBK and some kind of fruit that I don't really even know how to describe. So it's like, but they've all got sour in them. So like I'm still playing around with sour, but I'm trying to find things that like maybe are something different, right? Like cool color expressions, cool terpene expressions that we haven't really seen around um,
Mm.
in a while. Like not the candy gelato-y, runcy kind of fruity, sickeningly sweety terps, because I'm not really a huge fan of that. But there's
I'm
also a lot of really good work being done in like the pure gas space, if you will, right? So
mm,
I think the world's got room for uh, a whole lot of interesting flavors. Um, and I'm just kind of trying to find a groove there. Um, so that's kind of what I'm up to. A little solo work, a little combo work with Joe. We got a little project plan for the spring.
what's your project?
Oh, just a little work with this dad. Well, a couple dads I found actually. So I did a cross that, and this one's Joe inspired, but he didn't manage to get it done um, a couple summers ago because he. I don't know. Did you not have the grape gas yet?
I
when you
had the
did your
grape.
Rizzo run?
I made the sour grapes seeds, and I gave you some of the sour grape seeds, and
Yeah,
then
and I didn't
and then I lost all the seed stock. So you were the only one that ended up having like 10 seeds.
any of it. Yeah, and then I made some this summer with a Rizzo dad I found and the grape gas again. But we didn't get a ton of those. But we started some of those and we picked a couple dads from that. And I'm running like 7 or 8 ladies from that right now.
Ooh.
Um, and I'll probably take that forward once we pick out a winning mom. And we're also going to hit the whole library this spring with one or both of those dads and see what we can do.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds like this is gonna be big.
And
The,
I just posted a bunch of wild mountain cannabis seeds to the site that I sell my seeds on. The link is in his bio and in mine. So yeah, if you guys want to check out some cool shit that Maxwell's worked on, it's now available on the site too. So
I'll put those. Everybody give me 24 hours, but I'll put all of everybody's descriptions and where to get the seeds or the seeds in my description on our show tonight. So sorry, but thank you
Yeah, that's
guys.
all good. But yeah, we've
What?
got some stuff up now, and there'll be more coming. But it's fun. I mean, it's the same thing for me. I just want to find those new fire plants and or have other people find them. Like, how cool is it when, you've got people growing stuff you've created and like they find something that becomes the cut, right? And then you end up getting your own stuff back as a cut only.
Oh,
Like that's the jam, right? Isn't that the goal?
it's the
that's the
best
dream.
feeling.
Get everyone
Right.
else all the the heavy lifting and come back to us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why don't
Yeah.
we can make something happen with the chat and all kinds of things if you gentlemen would ever like with everybody would love to share photos or I don't know. Any
Did
way
anyone
that we can help.
in the chat?
I'm so sorry. AJ, can you say that one more time?
Did anyone ask any questions in the chat? Are we going to do any questions?
I feel like we can definitely do some questions. Everybody, because my show dropped the ball with dropping the original chat. Gonna have to look at those. Send you guys those later. But here, come on,
Because it seems
chat.
like there's always confusion, so we want to be as specific as possible in delivering these messages. People always take away from it whatever their own interpretation. So if there's anything you're not sure about, feel free to ask.
Yeah.
Please, please, chat. Don't let us
Please.
down.
Please ask.
Don't let me down. Just kidding. Um, well, how long? Okay, so you guys reconnected in 2018.
That
Did we really like the dead or was it the weed? No, I really like the dead. I still do, but I'm not wildly fond of Dead and Company.
You're not still going to the shows.
No, I haven't been in a while. I've gone to some of the current day shows, not gonna lie, but I did not attend any of the quote unquote final tour. No.
I cannot believe that this is where your guys' story kind of began, and then all these years later, I mean, look at this masterpiece.
Yeah.
that's what you
A
want to
ma-
call it.
yeah. A masterful accident. No, I mean it's cool. It's cool that it happened. It's cool that people still talk about it. And people are still into this one crazy plant. Um, that found its way into the world through all of our shared antics. Um,
Oh, we have a
and
question.
and
People are emotional about it, and they're so used to like being lied to. I think about it. That when they hear the truth, they're skeptical.
Uh, I, Sorry, AJ. I'm trying to scroll back up on this
All
to
right.
see. We have a question in the chat, but I can see what you're saying with them being skeptical, though. Everybody is skeptical nowadays. Okay. Sorry. This is from Chad Westport. So sour is just one pheno from a larger seed pop, but only had one, two sour qualities? Question mark. Like, sorry. It sounds like, was this from the original big seed pop that you guys did, and there was only two or one of the sour qualities out of all of that?
Yeah, I mean, as I understand it, and Manny has confirmed this in a few different spots. He kept one. He started whatever number of seeds Vondo gave him, and I don't know off the top of my head. I probably didn't know at the time. Um, and yeah, I mean, he kept his favorite, right? Like it, it was hard enough to keep a strain or two and keep them going and crank out, and like it's like I said. I mean, when I was doing my thing, the number two was what everybody was craving. That and Klopp's Chem. So like, there was no reason for me to go find something else to add into my garden and complicate my life and any of that. I could put the plants in the room. I knew exactly how much I was going to get at harvest time from the plants with the way we had things running. Like, so you could just look in there and count and be like, yep, boom, 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 boom. And so I wasn't off looking for something else. And I don't think Joe really was either. And my gut tells me, and we'd need Manny here to confirm it, but like his was the same feeling. It's like, all right, yeah, this is the one I'm gonna run with because it's way easier to monocrop.
I love. Thank you so much for responding to that. I have another one for you. I'm sorry. Foul Bundy. Can you explain specific characteristics that differentiate the AJ Sour Diesel cultivar from the other varieties of the Sour Diesel copycats?
Well, first of all, there is no. Well, there might be a cut that people call AJ Sour Diesel, but to be clear, AJ grows sour diesel. People started calling it AJ Sour Diesel because they were buying it from him or wanted to.
And
Right.
there were others
So,
that were available, but I was the most experienced grower. I was the one that dialed it in, and I was the one who cared the most about quality of all the people growing it in New York City. And so yeah, unbeknownst to me, they started calling it the AJ Sour.
yeah. So, and like I've seen people show me stuff and they're like, well, this is the AJ Sour. And it's like, well, that's not sour. So, whatever people pass around as AJ Sour that doesn't look like sour, that's not our cut, folks. Like, that's something that didn't come from this family. And we also didn't make it up because we needed a cut. Again, the sour's still alive and well. And the sour is the sour. So, like, if you've got some cut and it doesn't look like sour diesel to you and somebody gave it to you as AJ sour diesel, it's probably just another cut fish. They're everywhere.
That's like one of the worst strains, honestly, for that, I'd say. Like, where you just see a lot of like,
It's
wow.
definitely
Oh,
the most
yeah, but
commercial.
Yes. Yes.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. And there's people that, like, I guess did some intentional stuff, right? That then kind of built off of that and mixed into the gene pool and so that kind of complicates it too. um but yeah, there's a cut of sour diesel that like we all fell ass backwards into, and that's what Joe started growing and selling, and that's what Manny was doing, and that's what him and the bro took to Holland, and that's how Adam Dunn found out about Sour Diesel. I mean, it all is just chaotic, crazy fun. Um, but there's only one cut, and nobody did anything intentional except grow weed that we sold to our friends.
What about, okay, I have another one.
Yeah.
Tent Flashendо. Sorry if I messed that up. What is the Wing Wang Diesel? Question mark. Is that your original cut? And is that the cut you still run? I know you gave to him, but is it the original?
And that I couldn't tell you because I don't really I don't talk to Wing Wang that much anymore. We kind of had a falling out that I won't get into back in the day, and you know, uh, while there's things about Wing Wang that I really like and admire, we also had a lot of differences, and we so I cannot confirm or deny, but I can tell you that he definitely has had the cut, and he very well may still have the cut. So if I had to
Right.
guess, I'd probably say yes, that he probably has that cut.
That's nice of you,
Yep.
AJ.
He definitely had it for sure. Way back from Joe. So, if he hasn't lost it, he's got it.
Everybody said that you guys are fantastic and your guys' story is incredible. And, well, I hope you guys go through the chat after this because it's a lot of good news on there.
The haters will get here eventually. They're sleeping right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, we
They're
might have
all
lost some of
they're all either out or sleeping in New York, so they'll wake up tomorrow and they'll be back.
My show's always had a weird time. I'm sorry, guys.
Nah, it's all good. It worked for us.
They're so
Um,
nice.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. You got any more questions? I don't see anything in the chat either. Well, so what's the day record diesel?
Oh.
That's another one that depends who you ask. I mean,
There's a cut that people are calling original diesel that I think is the day wrecker, or what a friend of mine renamed it the headband, so we used to call it the headband, and a lot of people knew it as that.
Oh. What's a 707 headband? Is that the same thing? Or is that nothing?
707,
no.
no. 707 headband is Sour OG. They kind of like someone in Cali took the name and ran with it because it was Klopp was created the day wrecker, and so I called it the headband, called it the day wrecker. JJ called it, and so and a lot of people are calling that original diesel and think that that's somehow related. That's like an ancestor of the sour, but it is not. And the original diesel was always the Chem 91. I mean, and we didn't call it that.
Renamed.
We just called it the diesel.
Yeah. But the diesel also got tossed around on several. I mean, like, it was difficult because
to name the diesel. So just the fact that his
right. So the thing is like
Klopp's greatest creation, and just the fact that everyone's calling it original diesel is like spitting in his face because he hated that we called it the diesel. He would rather.
Well, it was never
day wrecker.
Yeah, it was never the day record diesel either. It was from him. Like, he did not name it that.
No.
He did and not. Like, and the friends Joe's mentioning, like, he had a few different things. Like, he would anything that made him feel like he was wearing a headband was the headband. And like there were people that were just like, I want the diesel, and you could sell them, Klopp's diesel, my diesel, whatever, and it was interchangeable to them. Like it started to become something that people called kind bud in some circles too. Like, yo, who's got the diesel? And they weren't necessarily looking for any of the strands or cultivars. They just wanted that fire.
God, sounds
But
so.
the first thing everybody called diesel was Chem 91.
That is crazy.
It was actually because of this guy Larry Block who owned the wetlands, and so me and my friends were like, we were interns at the wetlands, which basically meant we had free run of the place and got free drinks and got to use the office and everything else, and we would help out with the environmental groups there, and so we
Oh yeah, the
smoked
green pacers.
we smoked this Alaskan chocolate thunderfuck with Larry once.
Oh,
And he came back to us and he was like, don't, whatever you do, don't sell any of this weed. I've been around since the 60s and I can tell you that stuff's laced. But it was just really good, like Alaskan chocolate thunderfuck. It was like some of the best weed in the city at the time. And so we were scared to sell weed inside of the club called Chem because Larry would have been like, "What the hell are you doing? I told you that stuff's laced." So we didn't want to sell weed as Chem Dog, particularly because of him. Because if he got wind of that, he'd be like, "They're selling the laced weed again." So we called it the Diesel just because we couldn't use the word Chem. People didn't want to hear that. In the same way, people are like trolls and savages online. People would talk shit around town and be like, "Oh yeah, like those guys are selling laced weed. It's chem because it's got chemicals in it." So we
Right,
basically, for marketing purposes, we had to change the name.
that
right.
I'm so grateful that you guys just touched on. That is insane. I would have never known that. Or
So I was like, "No, this isn't Chem Dog. We're gonna call this Diesel." We called all good weed Diesel before that. We'd be like, "This shit is Diesel," but then when the chem came, it was like, "This is the Diesel," and
Yep.
we're just gonna talk about this as Diesel now. And so
Yeah.
that distinction was made, and then going forward, it was the chem.
okay, we have a couple more questions from AR97. How long did you guys usually dry the sour? Question mark.
Not long. People were like fucking like chomping at the bit to get it. Eventually, like yeah, I got into curing and like and after a while, I also like I wasn't as desperate to sell weed to keep my lifestyle going. Like I had some cushion, so at that point, then we could take 3 weeks to dry, trim, and then cure before selling. But back then, I mean, I always smoked the weed from the last harvest, right? Because I would put it in like flat glass jars, rubber top, and cure it for like a couple of months before I would start smoking it because I thought it would be harsh. But people didn't care. People wanted it like as
Yeah.
soon as you called them up and said, like come over and get it,
They
they were
didn't
like
care.
already outside, they were already outside. Like, I was just in the neighborhood. So it, yeah,
Yeah, it would say there were.
no older than 3 weeks.
Oh,
Gosh.
never. Yeah, no.
You guys, I can't
And
believe you guys.
there also wasn't anybody fucking around with like running sour 84 days.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
no, it was like
Like none of that fucking nonsense. It was like 65 days was a fucking eternity when you only had 2 or 3 lights, and you were trying to live off of it and, get it done and dried and out to the masses, right? So like, yeah, you know, 9 weeks.
God, I love 9
Right?
weeks. At least.
Yeah, but not anymore. Like I see people running things for an eternity now. Like I see people saying they've got original diesel and they're running it like 84, 85 days. We used to take our diesel number 2 at 60 days. Bang.
I feel like it's so strain dependent. I see now. Like it's weird. It's like some of these new genetics I see finishing honestly at like week 8. Like where it's like hard to like push them past that. Like I don't know. I know it sounds bad, but it's like I just see them getting shorter finishing times compared to like a lot of old school genetics.
Yeah, I mean, I still run
Yep.
stuff that takes 85 days because I mean, I need that stuff in my life too. But
Yeah.
those are,
There
L5
is.
things like that.
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah, there's a place for that.
that flavor and that like high honestly is so distinctive. And like I don't know, it brings back so many memories whenever like when you guys were talking about that flavor of a lot of new strains taste really fruity and all these different kind of like robust terpenes profiles. But like before it seemed like weed was so spicy or like OG or like skunk or garbage canny or like I don't know, it was so different, I feel like.
Yep. Trash can terps. Bring back the garbage terps for sure.
It's like it would stain your like mouth all day long. Like you'd smoke diesel.
We used to buy this stuff called the baby diaper,
Poopy
and
diaper. The poopy diaper, dude.
Oh my god.
yeah, the poopy
Cat
diaper was
piss.
very popular in the early '90s.
Yep. And it smelled
Baby.
just like it called it. But yeah, that was good.
Did it
The
get you
poopy
super
diaper.
high?
Yeah, the poopy diaper was fire.
That was the
It was
good
good.
good.
It was good. Yeah. It was up there. I mean,
We were in an elite like cult because we only smoked good weed, and good weed wasn't prevalent like it is today. So it was like we were like a secret society of good weed smokers, and normal civilians would encounter us, and like you wouldn't even believe the quality of the weed. And
Oh,
people, and I'm sure Maxwell can tell plenty of stories about dropping people in concerts and at like live music events. The guy next to you is like, "Hey, can I have a hit of that?" And you're like, "Yeah, but be careful." And next thing you know, he's having a seizure on the floor, and you're like running for the exit.
yeah.
And his friends are like saying, "What did you do to him?" As you're running out, so that was like a common occurrence.
oh,
People weren't really people the commoners didn't really know about weed this good. We were fucking dorks that like took shit always to a higher level. And now
And
there's
smoked
like
a
a huge
lot of it.
there's a huge culture
Yeah.
around that.
oh.
We were part of a group of like weirdos in 90s.
Because it was still not okay, right? You're talking, this is all really before anything got going, right? We're pre the Prop 215 universe, right? I mean, yeah, that started in 96, but it was so early and took a while to really get anywhere, you know? So, like, it was not normal. It was abnormal. And yeah, you'd either drop people or you'd want to get rid of people because you'd break out a bowl or light up a fatty at a concert, and everybody for 10 rows in every direction would be like, yo, what's that? And you'd have like, 200 dirty bug covered best friends.
Oh my goodness.
I'm
Um,
terrible. But yeah, it was
dark.
good times though. It was good times. Like, when we went to Eugene, the bro convinced Manny to strap a bong to his back and wear a big wool sweater. And it's Eugene and it's June, so it's hotter than hell, right? Because they're afternoon shows and everybody's sweating in like shorts and t-shirts. And there's Manny in like overalls and a giant like Guatemalan wool sweater with a bong strapped to his back so that we could do bong hits during the show.
Oh, I love it. You guys are like
Yeah.
the classy smoke squad though. That good energy. um
Yeah, it was fun. There, like I said, that's why. I mean, there were good times and bad, and it all mixed together. It was life, right? That's what
I,
life is, I guess.
Dark Horse wants to know if you sell seeds actually, Maxwell.
Yeah,
You have some seeds
yeah,
as well.
yeah. There's some stuff available uh,
What are your
on.
guys's
Click the link in one of our bios.
Click the link.
That's
Yeah,
the best
there's a
way.
link in either bio.
Okay, I'm
Yeah,
on it, guys. Don't worry, chat. I'm gonna put the bio link in the description. Everybody's excited about your seeds, guys.
Cool.
I just
Yeah, right now there's some pink starburst hybrids available, and there's a yellow Subaru Rizzo cross available. So that should be. I've got some of those in testing right now too. They look fire.
what's the
Um,
cost on that?
oh boy, that's a mouthful.
The,
Um,
the yellow Subaru is an NL5 haze times an OG, and then which is the RBK, and then that is crossed with the Frank Rizzo, which is a sour lime sour, right? So
yeah,
lime sour. So yeah, so it's got the gas from the RBK and the sour. It's got the liminess from the crumbled lime, and it's got the spiciness from the NO5 haze.
yep. And the ones available now. Well, yellow Subaru is sitting there on the site, and we've also got some yellow Subaru times Frank Rizzo again.
Mm.
So that should bring even more sour into the mix, and probably some of that color that comes from the Rizzo. A lot of reds and purples. Those lines definitely generate some interesting colors um, and terp profiles. Like I don't know, the yellow super is cool. You can kind of taste all three things that are in there, which I don't think always comes out of some of these polyhybrid crosses. But
Mm.
the NL5 haze is there for sure. But that gas from the RBK, if you've smoked RBK, you know RBK is in that cross.
I need that. I need that in my own life.
Yeah,
I feel
I'm about
okay.
to make a bunch.
Oh
I'm
no,
about to
sorry.
make a bunch of yellow super hash.
You're actually going to do it soon. This is coming up. The chat's gonna be counting down. Um,
Yeah, I'm just waiting on a couple supplies, and then I'll be making some hash.
okay, so how does Pinsky fit into this story? Somebody asked. Dark Horse.
It's big to fit any story.
So I'm gonna give you Pinsky. Yeah.
You want to know okay, here's how this fits in. In the 90s, we had alphanumeric pagers. They were like a brand new thing. And I saw Pinsky one night at Wetlands in like 1993 holding an alphanumeric pager. And I was like, "Oh my god, this guy's a drug dealer," you know. I knew because I had one too, and so I walked over to him, and and we met that way. I said, "Nice beeper," and then I lifted up my shirt and showed him that I had the same one, and and it was a special beeper where you called the operator and told them a message, and then the operator would type it in, and you'd get the text on your beeper, right? So it was the first pager that you could actually
Oh,
send voice messages through a page.
pretty
So
fancy.
so we linked up at that point, and that's how I met. That's how I met him. But we never really like hung out or surfaced in another group of friends that I had. And hello, are we still here?
Yes, we are still here. It got a little laggy. Feel free to repeat anything that you
Yeah.
want.
So
Damn it.
so where Pinsky mainly gets. Can you hear me?
Okay, it's working. It's working.
Here, let me. All right. So where Pinsky
No, you're
mainly
good.
comes into the sour story is that Pinsky was involved in a heist of clones back in like 1999, I think, where someone broke into my apartment, stole the clones, gave them to another person. That person called Pinsky. Pinsky picked up the clones. He gave them to another person, gave them to another person, and they wound up going to a guy who actually lived right across the street from me, who started then growing sour and producing it in New York in around the year 2000. And and he left New York after 9/11, and instead of bringing clones out to Cali with him, he moved to Cali and brought out bag seeds. that he had found in his sour. And so that also, I feel like, created a lot of confusion because a lot of people in North Cali were exposed to what he was calling sour. And that's Pinsky's fault.
Damn. I did not.
I and I knew the story because the person who broke into my house was my ex-girlfriend who like had, issues and problems, and she needed to make money, and so she did that. And so
He's
she ended
he's
up
being
getting
nice.
she ended up getting
That is
ended up getting
savage.
upset with the guy that she gave the clones to because she couldn't extort something from him she wanted or whatever. So she came to me a few months later and told me the whole story. And
Oh,
so I knew that Pinsky for many years, and Pinsky was always trying to connect with me, but I was always like, "Nah, I don't want anything to do with you. I know what you did." It wasn't until 2014 that I bumped into Pinsky, and he was like, "I'm so sorry. It wasn't me. I just, I'm sorry." And I said, "All right." I said, "I'll forgive you if you can get me tickets to see Neil Diamond at Erasmus High School where he graduated in Brooklyn." Because it was like 180 seat venue, and I knew he couldn't get the tickets. And somehow he managed to get me tickets,
oh my
and I
God.
had to forgive him.
I
So
had
we've
to
been
forgive him.
we've been friends ever since, and I forgive him.
That's
Sour
cute.
Sour had everybody crazy.
Yep.
I can't believe you guys made.
How can you not love Pinsky?
So that's the Pinsky story.
When Pinsky grows out his like side chops things, I can't. I just can't even talk to him. It's just.
Hey, listen. I'll send you a video of him on a Harley with those.
Yeah, they flapped in the breeze.
When I moved to Denver, he rented a place in Denver, and he bought a purple Harley Davidson that he left in Denver, and he would ride it around.
A purple Harley coming
He
in
had a
hot.
purple Harley, and I think I
Yeah.
have a video of him where I played Purple Rain on my car
I was
radio.
gonna say
Pulled
Prince.
up that phone and was like shooting him as he rode down the street.
Oh, that is so magical. That is hilarious. Let me see. There's another one. So Tent Flow Chem Do. he made it where I could pronounce his name. So okay, so Sour's mom was Diesel 2 question mark. So Chem 91 produced a seed that became Diesel 2 that also produced a seed that became Sour Diesel question mark. What was around it at the time? Question mark.
What was around the chem at the time? Skunk. All I know is skunk. Klopp was growing chem and skunk, and then this one crazy big haze in the corner.
And if it was the RFK, or I couldn't even say if it was the RFK or if it was when he started growing all the Dutch genetics. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
Guys got those seeds.
Yeah. So, but I mean, because that's what he would sell. He would sell chem and skunk at the time, and our seeds that we found, and the number two, and then that's Sour's mom or dad or both. um, came from chem he sold us. Could they be parented by whatever skunk that was he had? Sure. Or he hermed out his chem just like many among us have done with our chems. I don't know, but that's what he was growing then. He grew the chem on trays. He did the chem hydro, at least the bulk of it. He grew these cool ass little lollipop plants. They were awesome. It was in Grodan. He had flood trays, and he'd grow the chem that way, and then he had bigger plants on the floor that I think was all the skunk.
That's awesome. I'm really.
And that's all I know about where the seeds could be from. If he knows any better, he's, we're all still in touch with him. So if he has any more details to share, he should. But I'm not 100% sure he's crystal clear.
Mm. I imagine
He
it's
definitely
difficult.
started doing intentional work, but like I don't think any of it could have found its way into
Because he
my
never wanted
collection of seeds
to,
based on
yeah,
the
never
timing.
wanted us to have them. If he knew that he was selling us weed with seeds, he wouldn't have sold it to us.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, and it was rare. Like, I mean, in the course of a year, I only found a few seeds, and Bondo only found a few seeds. It wasn't like we were finding seeds in every bag.
It's like a diamond almost.
Oh, yeah, they were diamonds in the rough for sure.
Love it. I love it. You guys have given me my sparkle back to growing again. Thank you. um,
Everybody needs to grow.
I love that. You guys. Okay. Somebody asked earlier. I'm sorry. I think it was Gerhardt that asked if the dog bud or that original cut is still around. Do you think? Or
I don't know. I know that when I moved out to Cali, a friend of mine who worked for someone who was in the Grateful Dead, who had like a long, had been uh, uh, working and hanging out with the band for decades, said, "Oh, you guys remind me of my friend, back in the day, him and his dog Bud." And when I heard that, I was like, "What?" I was like, "Dog." So I started asking around about dog Bud, and yeah, it turned out that like we every generation thinks they're doing something like brand new, but they're usually just doing something that someone that the older generation just rolls their eyes and they're like, yeah, okay, like, so
mm-hmm.
we were like the young kids in New York, and we're growing diesel and selling diesel, but like clearly this same scenario had played itself out out in California and Oregon, and I'm sure that those guys would have similar stories to tell about people getting sour and people going crazy over their weed. And because all I'd ever known before that was that P Bud said that he had gotten the weed from someone in California, and they were calling it the dog or dog bud.
Oh, thank you so much.
And it was Greg that called it the chem, I believe.
Maxwell, do you have any thoughts on
Could be. No, no clue. I do know it was Greg that started calling it Chem
Greg
Dog.
dog, because a lot of people
Yeah,
don't know him as Greg.
Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
Well, we knew Greg
Um,
from the day because he was. I knew Greg because he was an apprentice of Dan Kay, and Dan Kay was a
mhm.
glass blower who, had a glass shop on a school bus that he drove around on Dead Tour. So, I met uh, Greg through Dan back in the day, and so I've always just known him as Greg. People
Yeah,
call him Chem Dog. Is
Chem
name.
Dog. Yeah, I mean it's hard because we end up outing each other a lot.
Well, is JJ
All of us do it too. We're like, oh shit, wait.
is that the same chem dog then that JJ uses in like Chem 91, I guess, or yeah.
Yeah. JJ used to buy weed from Klopp, the Weasel, and Klopp had
Hmm.
gotten the cut from Chem Dog. But and even though like I knew Chem Dog from '93, it wasn't my place to like try and overstep
Mm.
Klopp, and I wouldn't dare do anything to upset Klopp at that time by being like, "Hey, Greg, can I get some Chem Dog from you?" Or like, "Hey, how about those clones?" Like, I never dared say anything like that because I would never want to upset Klopp because and JJ was the same way. But eventually, JJ through the forums got in touch with ChemDog, and they shared clones, and then JJ started coming up with his iterations of ChemDog or Diesel, like Star Dog and all that stuff.
Okay. Gosh, thank you so much for answering these because it helps tremendously. Just to, it's nice hearing
Yeah.
this.
Let's see. Rusty's asking if it was Gabby that owned the hydro store that gave me the beans. No,
No, we could say
it
who
was
owned the.
not.
It was Bill. It was Bill Ross,
Yeah.
It's a perfect name.
legitimate businessman. He owns a hydro store.
Yeah, it was Bill Ross. Exactly. No, Gabby did not give us the beans. Gabby
I
is how Vondo met Klopp.
Klopp was from Staten Island. Bill Ross was from Staten Island. So they were like cronies from Staten Island. And when Bill Ross first opened his store, it was in Staten Island, and we'd had to go all the way there, either on the ferry or take a car service. And eventually he moved to Long Island, and I think at that point he was called. I don't know. I forget the name of his store. It was like Homebrew Hydroponics or something like that.
It was East Coast Hydro when he was on Staten Island, but I
And
don't
to
know
Bill,
what it became.
yeah, East Coast. That's what it was. And to Bill Ross's
Yeah.
credit, when the cops came in to raid the hydro store and steal all the records, right? There was a few. At least this is the rumor we had always heard. There was a few hydro stores that got their records seized, and and their cameras or video or whatever. But like Bill Ross always said, I had it set up on an auto destruct mode, and all I had to do was like pull the switch when they came in, and it deleted all the data, and no one ever got busted coming to my store. So we always we believed that it was superstition, and always go out of our way to go to his store.
That is actually really nice. That's like
But even
helping
with
out.
that, like you went as infrequently as you possibly could back then. It wasn't like in '08 when I went like tooling across the parking lot in Santa Cruz and there was Vondo selling shit from behind the counter. Like it was
Yeah, no,
sketchy.
I
It
got
was
Wow.
super sketchy.
followed from the hydro store once for
Yeah.
50 for 60 miles.
Oh my gosh.
Around aimlessly trying to get rid of this guy.
Yeah.
So
You would borrow a friend's car that like never ever ever came to your spot, but was like one of your good friends, and you'd do them a favor for letting you use their car. Like you did anything you could not to have to go there in any kind of way that could identify you. And that's why we bought like all our Pro Mix at Home Depot, all our pots, all that shit. Like you only went to the hydro store to get the shit you could only get at the hydro store.
like
Everything you could get somewhere else, you got
you
somewhere
bought my
else.
pet food at the hydro store, yeah.
Yep.
Wow. I
Yeah.
think do you think that made you guys like better growers and breeders ultimately? Like in comparison to, I don't know, when you get spoiled with like a lot of nutrient lines, like and a lot of information nowadays. That's awesome. But like I imagine back then
I
there
don't
was
know.
really
How unnecessary a lot of the stuff that is for sale is, because that none of that stuff existed.
wow.
Yeah, you can do a lot with almost nothing. And you can
But
grow absolutely like top shelf just as good as what anybody's got on the top shelf in their dispensary or store or backpack today with, what today would be considered garbage lights and shitty nutrients and, garden variety Pro Mix. Like not the fancy schmancy Myco. None of it. It was just, you know, good old regular Pro Mix.
I think that's like you said, at the end of the day, sometimes I think that's what gets the job done too, though. It's just,
Yeah, I mean, but it was definitely different, like you'd have to, Joe says it best, right? You'd have to like force water into the Pro Mix. Like you'd cut open the bales and break them up, and you'd be like pouring gallons and gallons of water on it and like poking at it with sticks and stuff to get it to try and absorb water, to get it to first take that water.
You could
which
Once you
never
got it wet, it was good to
add
go.
water. Yeah, you could never just put it in a pot and add water. Like that did not work. Like you had to mix
No.
it in a baby pool and get down to your skibbies and jump in and like really like get in there. Yeah. And so, yeah, I feel like the in that sense, the quality of medium was a lot higher back then. And,
Mm.
you can't really find anything good as that anymore. It used to be if someone was breaking up a bale of Pro Mix, you could smell it from like 3 blocks away.
Mm.
Yeah, it smelled good,
Yeah.
really good. Like the
Back
sphagnum and the peat was really very different than it is today. I don't know if it's different concentrations or what, but like it had a different smell.
I think we have to excavate all the good moss. We exhausted the reserves.
Mm-hmm.
A handful of us just buying pallets of that stuff. Because eventually I bought it by the pallet.
I completely agree with that's why like I've made a lot of transitions into like hydro and sterile systems now. Like it sounds weird, but because soil's quality has just changed so much, like the transition over the last 10 years, like you said, of all kinds of
I gotta
brands.
let the dog out. I'll be right back.
Yeah, we had a warehouse, me and this one guy back in the day, and we had like a roll gate and a loading dock, and we would rent a truck and fill it up with Pro Mix, like a couple of times a year, and we back the truck into the warehouse, close the roll gate, and when we take the Pro Mix out of uh, the truck would be too tall after that to leave the warehouse. We have to let the air out of the tires
Oh
and
my
drive with like half flat tires to go return the truck. So I mean, like we we went through a lot of that stuff. Eventually, I went through a lot of Pro Mix, and yeah. So I mean, sometime around like 2007 or eight, the quality just completely diminished.
sad. It's really sad to see happening. But I feel like that's incredible that you guys got to be like cultivators and such a big part of this. And experiencing like that, like you're saying, like these changes and the quality in which that you really saw and like produced and I don't know, continue to carry on. AJ, it's wonderful and refreshing. It's
Yeah,
really
well, I never felt like I had a choice.
I think okay, do you okay, breaking in too is I was going to ask you gentlemen earlier is because it was such a like a different time and like you guys were known as having the best and it was selling out that quickly is like were you at risk often for getting like broken into like that or did it happen or I don't know was that a
I,
thing?
I think after what happened to our friend Junior, I think that we all became very much more careful and reserved about who knew where to find us where, and nobody ever knew where to find my grow after that. And I was always pretty careful not to deal with anyone new, and I kind of just kept the same people around. And not that all of them were amazing, but at least I knew, you know, what made them tick, and I trusted them enough not to do anything too horrible. And yeah, people
Yeah.
did take advantage and things happened, but no, no one ever came and tied us up. And but we knew people that happened to, so we were really sensitive to
Yeah.
from selling Mexican weed like 1 degree away from Mexico. So like we were more aware than most people, and super careful about talking on the phone, and super careful about who knew what. That was, of the highest priority back then. So
Gosh.
Yeah, you kept things pretty quiet. You had to.
So you're like these weed
And I think that
celebrities?
probably is what we all have that like the next generation doesn't because they didn't have to.
Mm.
Right? Like not to knock people that like all came into it like after Prop 215 and other states start, and what's been happening in all the other states. I mean, props to all the good work being done, but like there's a lack of that healthy paranoia
Mm.
because you've never had to operate without a safety net.
I think that's why people started like
Like
snitching
even
and
in the
shit.
harsher states, like if you break the law in a state that's got medical good to go, yeah, you might get in some trouble if you go beyond their boundaries, but like you're not dealing with like New York 1990s mandatory minimum kind of nonsense bullshit, like where there were
We
people that were
made the
doing
plan
like,
and everything, and like that was the
yeah,
way. Yeah, like it was
if the
20 to.
cops came, yeah, if the cops came to your grow back then, they would weigh, and I was
Oh,
running 5-gallon buckets. They weighed the whole fucking thing,
oh.
bucket, dirt, plant, everything. So
They're
I would
like,
have
let
had
me
like,
sweep your floor.
right, there'd have been like 200 pounds in one run, and it's like, guys, I have 3 fucking lights. There's no way there's 200 pounds of weed there, right? But
$200
there's
million.
100, right? There's 195 pounds of Pro Mix. That shit was heavy.
Oh, that is just sad that you guys
Yeah,
had to go through
right. So
this
like that's
stuff.
the kind of fear we had to learn to live with and operate with. And I know it's always stuck with me. Like my kids tease me for being paranoid, and I'm like, well, it just comes with growing up in the times that we grew up in. Like we grew up paranoid. Paranoia is why we're still alive.
I think, yeah. I mean, I think that that's what protects a lot of like I don't know like friendships and close groups like you guys have. It's like not a lot of people have that anymore. I don't think because yeah they just don't know. I don't know. I see people call the cops on each other a lot or other little things and throughout like the years and it's just weird to me because I don't think they'd ever do that if they like had to grow up during a time like that or like really were doing this like because they love something so much and like really I don't know. It's just I just did you guys have shit like that as much back then? Did you have snitches?
I mean, there was only one person close to me that actually got busted, and he shouldn't have gotten busted because he got busted because he got robbed and his neighbors heard him getting beaten up while he was getting robbed and called the cops because they thought they were helping him.
Oh,
And then the cops showed up and kind of took advantage of the situation and he got in trouble, but no, and he kept his mouth shut for
You
sure.
know, we the reason why
Like,
we all got along is because we knew that like we were fully bought in to what we were doing, and if
yeah,
something happened to one of us and we snitched, we'd have nowhere to go from there. There's no
yeah,
support network. If you're a snitch, then you can't go back to your lifestyle. If you don't snitch, you might get in a little trouble, but you can always go return home to your community, and so we were kind of like a close knit community in that is that like if you had like another job you were working all the time, or if you weren't like fully bought into this lifestyle, then you really weren't trusted.
mm, I
yeah,
love. Thank you.
That's
Thank
how
you.
yeah.
who I
I mean,
trust.
and
Do they have somewhere else to go if they can't come back to me or and to our group, then we probably can't trust that person that much.
I think that's so
mhm.
valuable though. This like shows a lot about you guys for such a long time, such a long friendship. Yes. Um, let's see. Who has the best flower? Do you guys think right now, currently? Is there a go-to spot?
I mean, there's a lot.
I mean, there's good flour around. I mean, I don't know. I'm partial to my own.
I was gonna say. I feel like you
The best
know.
food is the weed you grow.
Ooh,
Right. You know, Wild Mountain Cannabis. That's who's got the best
And
flour.
if you don't have
But
any of that,
I mean,
the second best weed is the weed your buddy grows, and
right.
so
Or your good friend. Right. I mean,
I like
fresh,
that.
weed.
right.
support the squad.
This guy grows
Ooh,
the fire for sure.
Yeah,
Sherpa
Sherpa.
select.
Oh, Sherpa grows the fire.
Yes, he does.
I mean, there's
Heady goes
there's
the
a
fire.
lot of Heady Monster grows the fire. Yeah, there's good people doing good work all around. You know,
New
and the reality is, it's still the same place it's always been. People's backpacks.
I like that.
New Terp City grows fire.
That's right. This guy right here.
There he is.
Oh,
What's up?
that is exciting. That's a
Yeah.
nice little
I
sneak
mean,
peek.
so it's around. Who's got the best? I don't know. Whoever nails the best run that go around, it bounces around. But there's definitely a lot of good people doing a lot of good work.
I mean, that's the magic and inspiration we need to hear. I feel like everybody's trying to find the best. I know the chat was stoked on getting your guys' seeds. I think this is going to be big. I'm just saying. And I think that we need to have you guys back on for when you do this spring collaboration. If you guys would be
Yeah, for
up
sure.
for it.
Anytime.
It's
Yeah,
so
anytime.
nice. It was such an honor to have you guys on the show and together. I can't thank you enough and for
Yeah.
really sharing this story with me.
Andrew missed out.
I know Andrew's gonna be
Yeah,
so sad.
yeah.
I'm gonna.
He'll have to listen to it on YouTube.
He's gonna be sad. Oh, do you guys want to touch on anything or shout out anybody or anything before we wrap it up?
Um, I mean, we covered a lot. I think mission accomplished.
Yeah,
We'll have, we can come on next time, and I'm sure after this comes out, a lot of people will have plenty to say, and we'll hopefully be able to go more in depth on anything anybody wants to hear. But yeah, nothing. It's never enough. Hopefully, the message gets out. And that people can understand it. It's digestible, and yeah. If
It,
not,
yeah,
we can further explain.
we can open up the phone lines the next time that you guys come on. It's like we had it set up tonight to do it, but because I was having technical difficulties, I didn't want to chance it. But next time we can have like people in the chat call in and ask questions if you guys would be comfortable with that. But I think they'd love it.
Sure.
yeah, sure. Yeah, it's fun to
Thank you.
talk about this stuff. Thanks for giving us somewhere that we can do this and let people hear what's going on and what went on. You know, hopefully we've cleared up some of the confusion.
I think, like you gentlemen said, I think this is just going to open the floodgates to more questions, more conversations. But I think the chat really enjoyed it tonight. I really enjoyed it. I can't thank you guys enough. And I'm looking forward to having you guys back on. You just let me know anytime you want.
All right.
We'll make it happen.
All right.
All right. Well, everybody, I think we're going to call it a night. I don't know. I feel like you guys got to catch us next week on the Treat Show at 7:10. But make sure you listen to our full episode tonight. This full interview, even though we had some technical difficulties, we appreciate you so much. Please like and subscribe, and I will add in the description all the info to get in contact with AJ and Maxwell immediately. All right. Thank you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.